And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. It is 105 and low to mid 60s outside. A little chilly out there with some rain and thunderstorms moving through the area. We got a rundown on the forecast coming up here in just a moment. Dean, Bridgette, how are you doing today? Welcome back to another exciting afternoon.
It's going to sound terrible, but dried out. I got caught in that little rain shower outside earlier. It was a bit damp out there.
I went out and walked in the rain myself.
Did you? Just to check it out?
Just to, just to go see it.
Oh, I'm glad you did.
We had a little conversation.
Discussion with the raindrops.
It did a lot of listening. They're really good listeners.
Mother Nature ignored you as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I can't believe she lets you run the LRC when you guys don't follow each other's advice.
Yeah, no, not really.
Got it.
It's kind of a love-hate thing.
I got to tell you, there's a lot. Every time it rains, a couple tenths, it looks like a half inch or better right now. We're just real saturated.
Mm-hmm.
You're there.
Yeah, definitely. And there's more rain ripping through now, and we'll hopefully be done with this here in a few hours and dry things out for the most part for a day.
You say hours like that's a positive, pal. Goodness. No. I was going to go out and look at our cornfield today, but I forgot my water wings and life vest at home. Although I think that because of our friends at Ellingson Drainage, I think our field has drained off nicely, as much as it can anyway.
Yeah, boy, driving back to Nebraska, take the kid home, man, a lot of just standing water in the ditches and the fields. I mean, just yikes. Yeah, so we could I think the good news is, though, and we had touched on this last week, after June 5th, which is tomorrow,
oh, nice.
We are going to go into a drier pattern according to the LRC. Now, we're not totally dry, but much drier than we've seen in the month of May.
So that means we won't have a full 2 inches of rain already this month, and today's the 4th. There are areas.
There are areas that have, yeah.
Devil's Lake,
yeah.
there one.
Carrington, I think, picked up, was it $1.86 I saw?
Probably. Because nobody gets just a trace of rain right now. They're all getting
Steel got $1.86.
3/4 of an inch.
Yeah, it's and we've picked up close to half inch here at the studio.
Just in the last few hours.
Yeah. So it's some severe weather. You want to touch on those? That tornado warning got dropped, did it not?
They dropped that. Yeah, that's been dropped.
Severe thunderstorm warning up around Thief River where they can get some hail up there and some heavy rain. I mean, there will be areas that pick up, like you said, probably a quick inch of rain out of this. Thankfully, it's moving to the east-northeast at a pretty quick clip. So
it was, when I got to Fargo at 10 o'clock this morning, temperatures were about 75 degrees. So you could just...
It was nice this morning.
Well, you could tell, though, with the humidity, you knew this was going to come, right? Not really a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are, a little bit of rain.
Yeah.
In fact, we had a message in prior to coming on air from a listener over in the Lake Park, Minnesota area, wanted to know if he could possibly, his first chance he thought he might be able to get in a field to plant corn is going to be June 10th. That's Monday. And he wondered if it was going to be enough growing degree units throughout the rest of the summer and a late frost if his corn would make it. So a couple questions we wanted to know from our listener is, what's your day length on your corn? Because he might be bringing that down if he was like at a 90, might be pushing that a bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
But you said just don't have that ability to do those growing degree units on a per week basis at this point, right? That's a little bit too far out for us to
Yeah, I
guess.
mean, in general, we're going to have at or above normal temperatures for the summer. But
okay.
I mean,
So it'll push.
I don't foresee it being a hot summer, but you know what I mean? Like,
okay, every other forecaster with the commodity groups, if I watch anything that's going on with Ag Day or Farm Journal or whomever, they're all like, oh, it's going to be a really brutal summer.
Well, central southern plains, yeah. But this,
okay, there. Yeah.
That's a different.
Right.
That's I mean, it's already been in the 80s and 90s to our south in the central plains already.
Those guys sweat lots all the time.
Yeah. Yes,
This is why I have a daughter in Oklahoma, and I do not go there from May to through August.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. It's hot. It's awful.
We get enough heat up here.
No doubt. I'm really not a fan of sweating. I don't know about the rest of you.
No, I like the nice cool weather personally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it cold, but
I don't know. You're pretty giddy in the winter months.
I mean, I like snowstorms. I don't like 30 below. I think very few people like it when it's 30 below, but a good old snowstorm that's going to drop 1 or 2 or, oh, God forbid, 3 or 4 feet of snow. Wouldn't that be cool? You go to bed and you wake up and you can't open your front door.
It's cool when you have a snowblower, a shovel, and a generator.
That's right.
That's what makes it work best.
Indeed.
But all of this rainfall, is going to push a lot of our crop more in a disease pattern. So I've heard several planes starting on Sunday already in the air. They were putting fungicide on wheat. We're seeing a lot of yellowing of wheat. Right now, that's simply due to the excessive moisture we've had and hasn't warmed up a lot yet. So we're looking to see early season leaf disease in wheat, probably that 3 to 4 inch stage. A lot of fungicide being applied for that. I think our beet growers, especially those to the northern end of the valley, keeping a very close eye on their sugar beets, because you start to see leaf disease like Cercospora. You can also start to see root rot like Phytophthora, and they're trying to make sure that they prevent that as much as possible. Our corn is still young. We probably aren't seeing anything yet. There might be some below ground disease in corn and soybeans, but maybe not a lot. So everything's got to get a good eye on it to make sure it's doing well.
We need some 80s in the forecast to help things out, don't we?
What are the chances?
Late next week.
Okay. Like Thursday next week?
Friday into the holiday weekend. Well, holiday weekend. Father's Day weekend. Holiday for
Your
some.
holiday.
For some.
Wow.
We'll
Do
finally
we get that off? Well, I guess we technically do.
on Sunday.
As long as there's no
You
storms.
two do. Yeah.
But
you already
it's-
have a mini storm.
that heat-
Justin storm.
that heat,
Yeah, he's a handful.
the heat that's out to the west will start to build into the northern plains even by late next week. And
Next week is
middle of the month on onward, it does look much warmer.
Next week is a wildly busy week. It is Ag Tech Week in Fargo. And so you
That's
have events going on at Grand Farm on Monday. On Tuesday, kicks off Bushell's Buddy Seat Conference here in Fargo. That'll be Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, back out at Grand Farm for Cultivate. I'll be out there speaking. So if there's a chance that the heat builds up and there's a rainstorm, it's going to be
It's because you're
my
there.
fault.
What are you going to be talking about, Bridgette?
Weed control. We're going to talk about Palmer amaranth, water hemp, and kochia, and some strategies to try to keep those at bay as we go through this summer season. Yeah.
Flamethrowers.
You know, I follow a gal from Cornell in Western New York State on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it today. And she is doing work right now with a laser weeder. And I think there'll be one here next week at Grand Farm to demonstrate. But the problem is, I don't know how they're going to get that thing in the field because I've been past Grand Farm and that is muck boot deep mud right now. So it better dry out over the weekend in order for things to happen out there.
Be interesting. Shooting weeds with lasers.
You can. Absolutely. There's flamethrowers. Those are already being used in organic farms.
Tasers.
That's maybe on you. I'm not sure I'm going to call it a taser on a
No,
weed.
we don't need to talk about the past. I don't bring up your past.
Regularly.
We could talk
anyway.
about your college days.
No.
No?
In fact, there's some
Or lunch dates.
Yeah, how about your lunch dates?
there's some phone numbers I've programmed into the board that we will not accept those calls.
Well, speaking about weeds, what's going on down there in South Dakota and their hemp production?
It's not the weed you think it is.
Really?
It's not. It is actual industrial hemp. South Dakota leads the nation in its acreage. When you look at 3,200 acres, which is actually up 14% from last year, 3,200 acres doesn't sound like a lot, but it's also already got them starting an industrial plant down there for processing, and it's near Winfred. What they are doing with it is they're taking the natural fiber materials and they're using them as additives within plastics. Then there's something called hemp hurd, HURD. And that's the wood-like material that they take. It gets mixed in for animal bedding. So maybe it's being sold through TSC or Chewy, the online pet retailer. And then also some of those very tough fibers. That's why they raise industrial hemp, is for the tough fiber. And that would be added to what they're calling hempcrete, which is like an addition with concrete. So it's even more structurally sound.
Cool stuff. I think you can get two, sometimes three crops off of
Off a hemp field?
hemp, even up here. I think you can get at least two per season up here and 3 as you head south.
I think as you head south, and one of the things that growers in South Dakota have done is they've been in Washington lobbying to have the background check on industrial hemp growers removed. It's a bit of a hurdle, not because they can't pass it, but it does hold up your production. And the reason they say that is they are meeting all of the qualifications so that they do not get counted as, the rest of the hemp world might be, because their THC threshold is 1/3 of 1% and less. So they believe that they're growing a product, again, just for industrial needs. And we've talked to growers who are raising hemp for CBD oils and other things, but I don't know if we've talked to anybody in the industrial hemp side of the business.
Got to get somebody on for that.
Probably this guy. His name is Ken Meyer. He's from down in southeastern South Dakota. know who he is.
Pretty interesting. I think we did have one guest on that was talking
might
about,
have.
I think she was out of Kansas.
Yes, we did have, you're right.
We
did.
had an oil person up here, and then we had a fiber
down south.
down in Kansas.
Yeah. But
it'd be fun to get another
it's been a while.
Perspective in on here.
When you think back, I mean, I keep the list of who we go through for guests every week, etc. We've got quite the file. We've done a lot of things, and it's interesting now to bring others on who have slightly different perspectives, maybe on the same piece of agriculture. We've had bullfighters from the rodeo. Just this morning, I booked a rodeo clown. He used to rodeo, got injured, and now he's a clown. So he'll be kind of fun to talk to.
You get injured being a clown too.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. That, as said by many people in high school, I was just clowning around. So yeah, those things can happen.
Well, those clowns get in the barrels and they get thrown around. Yeah,
can get tossed pretty hard. I would say that's not always your goal unless you're a real thrill seeker, but maybe it is.
Sounds like a headache waiting to happen.
Many of the things we do would be considered that, yes. All right. More to come, though, and we also have a guest coming on today, and I know she's already waiting for us, and that's Cami Ryan. She's with CropScience. I know Cami mostly through social media. One of these days we'll actually meet in person, but she's got an interesting and varied background. So we're not really going to talk about the pesticide business, but we have a whole different side of the business that Cami is a part of, and some of the things that happen, especially when it comes to social media. Farmers aren't always the easiest folks to market to, and frankly, neither are we. As consumers, we love to buy, but we don't like to be sold to. And she might have some discussion points about that as well. So we will be back with our guest, Cami, shortly. We're going to catch up with the American Ag Network, check in on all of those headlines, and we'll have more to come from us as far as headlines and weather as our hour progresses. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus here on WDAY. Thanks for joining myself and our crack meteorology staff, Dean Wysocki and Justin Storm. Also, for those of you who are thinking about what should I be doing on a day like today when it's cloudy and rainy, well, maybe you're thinking about
Martini lunch?
Well, no, not today.
No?
But maybe you want to buy a jet ski. Maybe you want to trade tractors.
I'd go hit some ditches.
I'd go see Dakota Bank, and they're one of our sponsors for Here We Grow. I bet Chad and his agribusiness lending friends at Dakota Bank would be happy to see you come on in, and they'd want to have a visit with you. Or maybe you've decided, I'm cleaning out the machine shed, I have too much, then you want to call the Steffes Group. They can help you with an auction. We appreciate all the work that those guys do with us for our Here We Grow project, and you can check out the Steffes Group online. Look for all of their online and in-person auctions that are up and coming. Also up and coming today, well, she's our guest. That's Cami Ryan. Cami is with Bayer CropScience, and during the break, the guys looked at me and said, what are we going to talk about with Cami today? And I said, oh, you just wait until we start to visit with Cami. Cami's got a lot of awesome things, and I'm going to ask,
not products.
Not products. But I'm going to ask her to introduce herself. Tell us about you, Cami.
Hey, nice to see you. Bridgette, I actually, before I introduce myself, I just had to check to see how far away I was from you. And now that I'm back home in Canada and Alberta, I'm 13 hours away from you. So a little closer than when I was in Missouri.
You are. We're going to make this happen. I mean, I'm only going to Winkler, Manitoba in 2 weeks, but so close.
Really?
I am.
It's, well, close-ish.
Close-ish.
You know, still a 2.5-hour flight for me. But, you know, Canada's so huge.
It is.
So huge, so huge. Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to see all your faces. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Cami Ryan. My role is Industry Affairs and Sustainability for Bayer CropScience Canada. And I have been with the company for 10 years now, actually with Legacy Monsanto at the beginning. My first role with the company, and this is probably what makes me a little bit different and how the content might kind of go in a different direction today, is I was originally hired by Monsanto as a social and behavioral scientist lead in the crop science business. So I'm kind of a nerd in a different kind of way. It was the first role of its kind. And I guess if I have to kind of distill my little elevator speech down to a floor or two, I would say this. Agricultural science thinks, but the public feels.
Oh.
So my job as a social scientist is to kind of help bridge the gap.
All right. Okay, based on that, guys.
All right, well, I'm gonna start off with, we're gonna play a little conspiracy theory game, because we've got people, and both Bridgette and I know people, and they think that all these herbicides and pesticides that we're spraying on our crops is not good, that it causes cancer, and that this is the problem with half of the food that we're eating. Can you dispel that, Cami?
Oh, in 50 words or less, is that the challenge?
Sure.
Oh my goodness, no, probably not. Let's be real here. Agriculture has been facing the drumbeat of misinformation for decades. I mean, this is not something that's going to go away. And as much as I was idealistic thinking back in the day when I was young, naive, and idealistic, I wanted to fix the problems, right? I felt if we just communicated enough, we could fix some of these problems and people would see and understand. And that's really not the way it is. But we do have a bit of a reputational issue around pesticides. The whole industry does, and we carry that burden as an industry. Is it going to go away? No, but I think that there's opportunities here, no matter where we fit in the value chain in agriculture, from the farm to the plate, even from an advocacy standpoint, is to sit and talk about where the value add is from all of this. And what we do know about pesticides, herbicides, and that whole family and class of tools that we need in the toolbox is that they do help optimize and preserve our production and the food the food that we offer up as an industry for the world to eat. So it's important to continue to have those stories and to make sure those that are closest to the ground, feet on the ground, the farmers, are actually the best storytellers and the best ones to communicate where the value is. Plus, they work closely with the products. So they're the ones that can even actually talk about the safety and the safety profile of some of these products. So dispel it, not quite, but I do understand that there is an importance in how we communicate and we engage with the public to talk about the work we do, the work we love, and what it means for our families and our communities.
So, Cami, let me back up just a little bit to ask this question. And I ask this of groups often when I'm in front of them. What if we started, because you said, this is a decades long feeling that there's that love-hate relationship with the word pesticides, et cetera. And let's take that to GMOs, genetically modified organisms. What if we had used a different word? Do you think that we would be in a different place today? Because people get scared about saying we've modified our food. What if we'd called it something different from the get-go?
Well, maybe, and maybe we need to have a conversation about that. That's interesting because I was on Twitter the other day, and Dr. Kevin Folta was advocating for a change and not to use the word GMO anymore. And I responded to him, and I think I reminded him about a conversation that a group of us that were doing science communication around engineering years ago, we actually had this conversation, and we were stubborn. We said, why are they using this word GMO or this term GMO? It's meaningless from a scientific perspective. So when you are a science communicator and you're trying to get across the accurate information, GMO is not a very accurate term. But what we discussed back at that point was we were trying to bridge the gap with the consumer. And the consumer understood that term in a way that they understood it. So it became a bridging mechanism for conversations with the public. Now, I think what's been kind of coming to the forefront right again now is that, oh, okay, well, people kind of are getting it a little bit. And now we could maybe play accurate terms, because I think, and I could speak for myself as a consumer, I like to think I get a little bit smarter, or I understand more the more I'm exposed to something. So then all of a sudden, are we in a better position to talk about, genetic engineering, what that means, transgenics, those things, and then by virtue of what's come since, gene editing. So yeah, these nonsense terms come out, but it's a way for people to understand. I think the difficulty is a lot of times it's our critics that come up with these terms.
True.
So we become reactive in our response to them. We kind of, in a way, co-opt them. And then we go, yeah, okay, we're going to take your term, but we're going to ante up and we're going to tell you a little bit more about this in a way that you can understand. I mean, that's the ideal approach to all of this, I guess.
So I like what you said, that farmers tell their best stories. And I had a farmer ask me this. He said, I've been told to do that for 10 or 15 years. Am I making a difference? Are consumers listening to what I say? And what do you see from your perspective, Cami? You work with those folks a lot. I mean, with industry affairs, you have your hands on this stuff regularly, I would think.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm an optimist. I'm less idealistic, but I'm still an optimist. And I believe those are the best stories to tell. They're authentic. They come from a place of experience and understanding. And those are where the farmers are the source of stories that we want to hear about our food. I don't care what part of the value chain they're involved in. So I think that they're the ones that need to step up, and they're the most believable. They are the most trusted. So there is a real huge advantage to this. I think sometimes what we feel is frustrated in this industry is that, like, there's so much noise out there. Like, every day on the internet, 2.5 quintillion data are generated. Like, that's 18 zeros.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
a lot of content. That's a lot of noise. So I think what's hard when you're dealing with, say, less than 2% of the population that actually farms and they're putting their stories out there, it's a small percentage of what's happening. But I don't believe that should deter us from continuing to use these communication, engagement, social media tools to try to put our stories out there in very creative ways. And there's always new ways to do things. I think that that's value add. And it's interesting. I was at a couple of conferences earlier this year, and we invited, of course, non-ag people to come speak, which I think is really important in all of this. Get some other perspectives, bring new people to the table with new ideas. And interestingly enough, they all had one thing in common when they were sharing their messages, when they were speaking, and they said, "You guys need to get out there and tell your stories." And we're sitting in the audience going, "We are." And then I'm sitting there thinking, okay, we are. But then I'm thinking about all the noise. And then I'm thinking, are we still talking to ourselves more than anything? And, there's a function of all of that, right? There's algorithms, there's all these other things where we're all excited about the farmer stories we hear. But is it because we're in the industry and we don't necessarily do we still have to do more work to bridge? Yeah, probably. We probably still do. And the other thing is we're dealing with short attention spans. Oh my goodness. We are living and working in a attention-driven narrative economy. That's what we're doing. I mean, we talk about this business and we say this is this. So I say Bayer, and then there's BASF, and there's Syngenta. Those are the competitors or whatever. But really what we're doing in this industry across the board is we're operating in a narrative economy. And when we think about that, we got to think about, where do our stories, our products sit within that narrative economy? And so how can we continue to do better? So the farmer you were talking to, Bridge, I mean, obviously, yes, it's making an impact, but I think sometimes our expectations can be high. I mean, mine were. I thought, oh, we're going to fix this. You're not going to fix this, but we have to continue to participate in this narrative economy if we want to bridge these gaps.
Oh, and we do. And I am excited that when we come back, I want Cami to help us figure out, okay, so as consumers, how do we want to hear that story? What are some of the things that she's learned in talking to those non-farmers? And then maybe some helpful hints for those farmers who are out there who say, well, I want to get started, or maybe I should have been doing this for a bit. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus as we watch just a little bit of rain moving through the area. And that doesn't dampen our spirits as we talk with our guest today, and that's Cami Ryan. Cami joins us with Bayer CropScience Canada. And Cami, when we were talking before, I posed a question to you, and I realized I've got a couple different ways to ask this. One is, as you visit with consumers, what do they want to hear about agriculture? And then I'm going to ask you two. You stand here and listen to me every day. What do you guys want to hear from farmers?
I think just more education for the general public. I mean, you educate us every day. But I think there needs to be more education, but how do you do that? How do you continually get the word out when, like Cami said, our attention spans are so short now.
Shorter than a goldfish.
Yeah. So how do you do it? I mean, how do you effectively communicate correctly to just the general public on how farming works?
Social media.
Stop reading Facebook.
Even social media, though. I mean, look at how much disinformation is out there just on social media. Here's a good example. I was watching YouTube, and this ad came up about chickens in the 50s compared to chickens now, and how the chickens are so much. I mean, this thing looked like a gorilla chicken. This thing had muscles on it, for crying out loud, because of like back then they were natural.
They're saying hormones added.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just some of the misinformation that's out there. So how do you know what to believe?
All right, Cami, where do we start? I have my battering ram on that, but where would you like to start?
Yeah. Well, and we're probably pretty much aligned on this. Yeah, it's a tough thing, right? Education efforts, I think we have to continually do that. I think we need to start early, like in school. Like, this is something that just foundational is in school. They've got to be starting to teach these things if they're not already. So I think there's good resources out there, but I think there's opportunities there. It's interesting because again, the mis and disinformation thing are never going to go away, because the reality is there is always someone out there. They don't care about public health. They don't care about food. They don't care about food security. They don't care about agriculture. There to problematize some topic because they gain from it. So they use mis and disinformation as a commodity product in this narrative economy to, draw donor interest and then donor dollars. So there is money to be made from mis and disinformation, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to eliminate that industry, especially in how we communicate human to human now. Now, that being said, the flip of this is that there is still opportunity with social media, because I think the way to really gain ground with consumers is visually, through what they hear, what they see. I think experiential things are really important. Like now, when I was just at Farm and Food Care Ontario a few weeks ago, giving a talk on mis and disinformation, as it turns out. But also they have like this virtual reality thing where you can go into 26 different farms and experience things. And I did the dairy one, and I did a berries one, a blueberry one. And it was fantastic. I mean, those are the kind of things that consumers can actually experience. If they can't get to the farm itself, they can actually experience it in different ways. So technology, while it can be the enemy, it can also be our friend. I think what's on us as individuals now, because of the nature of the world we work and live with, all of this data points, we have to learn to be better critical thinkers. And that's just not a natural thing for human beings. That's never been a natural thing for human beings.
Oh, that is very true. And okay, so let me think of it this way. When you have to reply to people, because I do this a fair amount, speaking back scientifically probably doesn't help, just because of what you said about doing it. Critical thinking isn't quite there. So what's the language to use if I'm posting something on social media and I'm being refuted by disinformation, which, by the way, all you anonymous accounts out there who are just trolls who won't, if you don't have the guts to use your real name, do not send me messages, because I will just bite back. I'm not for that. So what do you think, Cami? Where do you go with that?
Well, I think something that we have learned in this industry over time is that you find ground. And the strength, I had a piece of hate mail come across my email. We get it at Bear all the time. I mean, it happens. And so I don't know why they send it to me. And I mean, there's one thing to kind of, share back. And we share back. Well, here's some links to some things that you might want to understand better. Here's about the glyphosate litigation. Here's this, here's that, whatever. And that's great. We need to do that. But I went and I responded to this individual separately from the corporate account, and I just said, because she was really upset. She goes, "You're poisoning the world, and don't you have grandchildren or children?" And I went, "Okay, there's my entry point.
Yep.
Okay, yes, hi. I got your email and I sense that you're really upset. I just wanted to share some things with you, and I didn't get into facts. I didn't link anything for her. I just said, I understand your concerns. I worry about the safety and well-being of my children as well. And yes, I am a grandmother too, and I am concerned about what my kids eat, but I feel perfectly comfortable with how we're producing our food. And, we have one of the highest food safety profiles in the world. North America is great at producing food. So you find common ground. I think the trick is, which you figured out, Bridgette, and this is where it's saved me a lot of time, is that you figure out who you want to engage with. Where are things going to go? But my goal with that individual that reached out to us at Bear was I wanted her to, one, next time she was thinking about this issue, I wanted her to remember that someone in the industry reached out to her with a different, maybe unexpected message. Because I think sometimes we throw the science back, the data back. Here's a website, go educate yourself, whatever, with the thinking that that's going to work. And I think that that's what they expect from us as a company. I wanted her to remember something different.
Humanizing it, because
Yeah,
I think
humanizing, 100%.
I think a very similar situation. I had a friend who she reached out and she just said, "Where can I buy organic chicken?" Because she said, I'm positive that people are putting something into my food that I'm unaware of." And again, a lot of that comes from misinformation that's widely available. But I think that one-on-one conversation helps alleviate the fears that many people have. And we did have a message come in via email that said, how do we help people overcome that fear of chemistry in their lives? At one point in time, everybody thought that processed foods, household chemical, whether it's 409 or Mr. Clean, was awesome things. And now you have folks who are like, "Oh no, these are horrible." How do we get people to feel more comfortable?
Yeah.
Because there's a reason they're also thoroughly tested by Food and Drug and other agencies.
Yeah, I always remember my grandmother. My grandmother was, she was almost two, she was 3 generations older than me. So she remembers when, right? She was the oldest of 12 kids in Norway, and she had to go out and hunt every morning for food. That's how she lived. And she remembered that they didn't have refrigerators. So I remember asking her when I was a little girl, I saying, "Grandma, what's the best thing that you best invention ever?" Like that. I don't know. I probably said it in a kid way. And she goes, "Pasteurization and refrigeration." Like that was her thing, right? But for her and her experience in life, that meant a lot. So all of a sudden, processed foods was a good thing from her perspective. Refrigeration, pasteurization, all of these things would be good because of she had to survive differently. Today, we have plenty of food. We to survive today is just a little bit different. We're trying to survive socially. That's the focus. We have plenty of food. So now we have room to complain about it. And are the changes positive? Are we experiencing some? Maybe. I mean, this is about, innovation and moving forward. But I see the vilification of food and food production as being kind of a step backwards for us as humans. But the reality is we kind of have full stomachs, so we have that luxury, which is kind of the sad part of all of this.
Boy, that's really true.
Right.
So much so. Okay, so for the farmer guys farmer guys and gals who are listening, and they maybe haven't done very much on social media, what are those 4 or 5 tips that you give everybody, Cami, that you say, make sure you do this?
Okay, so there's a lot of social media. It's overwhelming. I'd say pick your battleground. I can say that. Um, Pick something you're comfortable. First, whatever you do to make you feel comfortable is you go in and you just be a voyeur. Like go in and watch for a while. I remember TikTok I didn't go on TikTok till 2012 or something, but all I did for about a year was I just observed. And I observed in my industry because I wanted to see how my industry was being talked about, but I also wanted to see how people in my industry were talking about things. I felt comfortable, that's when I started engaging. And I have this formula as when I engage anywhere, especially on Twitter, because tend to spend a lot of times on Twitter. There's good conversations on there. I have a 70-30 split, 60-40 split. I like to talk about not when I say personal, I like to think non-work, non-ag related things. That to me is an entry point for being relatable. So I talk about things like art because I do art on the side. We're doing renovations on our farm right now. Everybody can relate to renovations. That's my 70 or 60 piece. Then that gives me that social license to pull in the stuff, to bring in the work related stuff. So I try to pull that into all my social media platforms that I work on. So you got to pick your space, uh, observe for a while if that makes you more comfortable, because it certainly did for me. Then pick maybe where you want to focus. Like TikTok is a great space right now. And one, we got some great content out there from an ag perspective, and it's a great way to present experiential information for a consumer that doesn't go on the farm. Then the other thing, and Bridgette, you pointed it out earlier, is that literally you have to decide, like when you're engaging and you hit the wall with some of those trolls,
Hmm.
it is 100% okay to walk away
Yeah.
and give yourself that permission. You do not have to stay in those conversations at all.
Cami Ryan is a fantastic follow on all her social media platforms. She is one of my favorites. And for folks who are listening and want to start following you, Cami, how can they do that?
Well, I'm kind of on all the things, and I think my moniker on there is Cami D. Ryan. I'm not too hard to find, but if you want to follow our shenanigans as we renovate and restore this 70-year-old farm and all of its buildings, I'm Reno Junkies on TikTok, and yeah, there's a whole lot of madness going on there
The morning
for
you
your
were
entertainment.
the morning you were having coffee by the wood stove with your skid steer loader next to you, I was most impressed. I hope you gave it a little dose of warm hydraulic fluid to make it feel better too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I have to name.
Oh shoot! Did Cami freeze right
And
there?
we just
We just
lost
lost her.
Oh,
She's
no.
Well.
she's gonna have to name that skid steer. Then
Oh.
I bet she will.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We will be back with weather and headlines. Don't go anywhere.
And welcome back to the program. 1:54 on this Tuesday afternoon. Check on the forecast. This coming up as light rain continues in and around the FM metro. Good news is it looks like we'll dry things out for a few days coming up here. Hey, you want to be a part of the program? Give us a call. 701-293-9000 is the Red Wing Shoes shoe line. You can reach us anytime using that number. Also, emails weather or ag@flagfamily.com. And before we get into the weather, why don't we hit one? I think this is our last ag topic for the day, and this is forgiving beginner farmer student debt. Bridgette, what's going on with this?
Last topic for today. We missed all of them yesterday, so maybe we'll get to those this week.
Indeed.
All right. U.S. Senator from Minnesota, Tina Smith. She's a member of the Senate Ag Committee, along with Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut. They reintroduced the Student Loan Forgiveness for Farmers and Ranchers Act, and this is legislation for loan forgiveness for beginning farmers and ranchers, as well as women, veterans, and minority farmers. They believe that student debt is a hurdle for those who want to get back into farming, and with average age in the United States of a farmer of 58 years old, this is one opportunity to bring more folks back to the farm, help them be more successful financially speaking as they take over many of those farm acres. This is a reintroduction. It's been introduced in the past. I do know that when we talk about loans and programs from USDA, FSA, Farm Service Agency, that you can be up to 10 years of farming and still be considered a beginning farmer, I believe is how they define that. But in this instance, I think you'd have to be less than that. I'm sure there's a lot of parameters with it. Again, this is just proposed legislation. It actually hasn't gone through yet, but maybe an opportunity for some people. We'll see what that turns into. We just don't know as of yet.
You said that came out of Minnesota?
Yeah, that was proposed by one of the senators out of Minnesota,
right.
Tina Smith.
I see.
Yes, and Connecticut, which I kind of giggled a little bit. I'm like, I mean, every state in the nation has agriculture. Connecticut's maybe not one of my first that I think of when I think of farming,
right.
But hey, way to step out there for us. Thanks.
They got pumpkins up there, don't they?
Connecticut?
Mm-hmm.
They do have a lot more veggie crops. They're kind of getting close to that Delmarva region with the Delaware, Maryland, et cetera. The Delmarva raises a lot more production agriculture than you expect, and Connecticut's not far away, and they do have some as well.
All right.
What about our wet spring, and is this a worry for disease in wheat?
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that when I talked about the yellow wheat,
right.
And that we've got airplanes up and covering a lot of ground because we do see early season leaf disease right now. Even at the 3 to 4 leaf stage, we're seeing tan spot. So adding in something just as easy as like a propiconazole at 2 to 3 ounces would make a difference when you're spraying your herbicides. If you can travel by ground, no doubt. Then otherwise, we'll have to start looking at air.
All right. And why don't we dive right into the forecast here, because I think people are probably sick of the rain. They want to see some sun. But will rain be replaced with wind? Dean, what say you?
I thought you were going to do it. You want me to do it?
Yeah.
All right, we'll take it. Well, we do have some windy weather coming over the next couple of days. Most of the severe weather now pressing well northeast of the FM area, even north of Thief River Falls. So the threat of any severe weather around our area for the rest of the afternoon really starting to diminish, although a few scattered showers still remain. Those will push northeastward, and by evening, the rain shuts off, and I think we'll see a little sunshine before the sun goes down today, with temperatures kind of stuck in the 60s across much of the area as winds turn to the southwest. And then overnight, we'll see temperatures dropping off into the mid-50s, and then a couple of windy days Wednesday and Thursday, with winds gusting over 40 miles an hour both Wednesday and Thursday. Hang on to your hat kind of day, with temperatures in the 70s, low to mid-70s over the next couple of days. But it should be, after tomorrow, still some scattered showers. They'll develop with the heating of the afternoon. And then Thursday and Friday, dry. Honestly, most of the weekend looks dry, too. Maybe a few isolated pop-up showers on Saturday. But you could pretty much figure about 4 or 5 days of drier weather. A little on the cool side for this time of the year. Normal highs mid going into the upper 70s as we head towards the weekend, but we'll be stuck in the lower 70s. But it does look like 80s should return to the forecast by the latter part of next week. Yes.
Hope so.
Summer warmth is around the corner. It'll be here towards mid-month. So for Justin and Bridgette, myself, I want to thank everybody for joining us on Weather and Ag in Focus. Don't go anywhere. Number one show in the afternoon, the Jay Thomas Show, is coming up next.